Okay.
Hello, good afternoon. Ramona, how are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you.
Well, thank you
Thanks for having me.
thank you for giving me the chance of interview you. I heard about you last year and also read about what you shared in Legal Insurrection and your article there, and also um, Wall Street Journal also have an article about you. Mhm.
Mhm.
So what's your current situation now?
Well, the current situation is that I think the last time you're probably referring to that Wall Street Journal article on the harassment and bullying that occurred as a result of my going public with what I'm seeing in the schools.
Right.
And so I was moved involuntarily out of that middle school
Okay.
where I had a permanent job.
Uh-huh.
And basically moved to another school, another location where they have me literally sitting in a basement all day as though I've done something, wrong. They say it's for my own safety. However, there's a little bit of a game being played here. I think it's definitely to send a message to any teacher who would like to speak out against the reality of what is happening in our schools. They're telling me it's for my safety, when in fact they want to make an example of me.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they can. So here's this thing, which is a lot of parents do not know that in in America, the public school system, and if you are uh, not a good teacher, if you are not competent at teaching, but if you play the game right, the teachers union will protect you.
Oh, yes.
And on the other hand, even if you are a very good teacher like you, but if he wants to expose what's going on in the system, even though it is true, and they will give you all kinds of trouble.
Absolutely. That is 100% correct. And that is also why so many teachers are leaving the profession, because they're good teachers and they know that what is happening currently is harming children and is morally and ethically incorrect. And good teachers and good human beings are going to naturally speak out against this sort of abuse and tyranny in our schools. And the moment that happens, they become a target. So you're 100% correct that many of the best teachers are leaving or just being harassed and silenced into submission.
Right. Yeah. And this is what I have experiencing in Indiana. My channel, basically, it's a weekly channel, YouTube channel, and I put every week I put an episode. I mostly interview parents and to kind of to share their story, because as you know, especially last year, a lot of parents and was able to see what's going on because their kids are learning at home. They see what's going on there for the first time. American parents kind of saying, "Oh, there's something not right," and but I'm still very hard to. So I have lots of parents who are willing to share, but not that many teachers. They can share to me privately, but they don't want to get down to the show publicly.
For good reason.
Yeah, because they're afraid of the retaliation and all that. Yeah. Now, when did you start to see the problem?
Well, specifically, I saw something very unusual around this time last year, actually around January of last year. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books started streaming into our classrooms. And I also noticed that all our old texts, the classic texts, were removed. So I thought, this is unusual. And so I went through all the books looking for the classics and realized that there were no classics.
Oh, wow.
And that these books, in fact, had a very common theme. The hundreds of books that I was seeing seemed to have the same theme, the same sort of bizarre narrative. And none of the authors were recognizable to me. There were no classics. They were all sort of bizarre and almost cartoon-like in the image. But most importantly, the themes, the characters, the imagery all spoke to the very same issue, same thing, and that is that America is bad. An undercurrent of anti-Americanism, and a very strong undercurrent thematically connecting all the books to the oppressor versus oppressed narrative. So this is when I first became most alarmed. I was first alarmed even prior to that January rollout of the books. I was alarmed by the fact that my principal back in November, the November prior to, so now we're going back a little over a year ago,
Right.
reprimanded me, a teacher at the time of 22 years, for teaching the Declaration of Independence. And immediately I thought, why is this a problem? To which he couldn't really articulate why. He made some silly excuse up. Next thing I know, I was brought to HR and reprimanded, chastised, humiliated, and, brought before this tribunal of individuals that spoke to me as though I'd committed some terrible atrocity and crime. At the time, I had no idea what I had done wrong. And subsequent to that November date, things were starting to alarm me. And, following teaching the Declaration of Independence, then it was that January rollout of the books.
Right.
And from that point on, I started to ask questions and complain about the curriculum, as many colleagues were complaining, but I was probably the most vocal. And from that point on, it was remarkable how many times I was chastised for ridiculous things, mispronouncing a student's name, or walking out of the building during a fire drill incorrectly, to which none of these are offenses that would even rise to any sort of disciplinary action, but they were building this ridiculous scenario. And trying to discredit and harass me in the hopes, I'm sure, of trying to force me out of the profession, as they've done to so many excellent teachers who have spoken up against this.
Yeah. Wow. And who would thought that teachers will get into trouble by teaching Declaration of Independence?
Who would think?
It's just like, wow. And so who is responsible for that, for the books and curriculums?
Well, I imagine it all comes from the Federal Board of Education. And before that, it comes from political activism. The Board of Education and all our state level boards of education are riddled with mandates coming from the federal government to teach these certain curriculum packages, to discard certain lessons and textbooks. And, there seems to be a lobby or a sort of initiative by, big tech companies. And, they seem to have a very strong hand in the development and rollout of these curriculum materials. So for example, Mark Zuckerberg has a platform called the Summit Platform, which Providence uses. The Gates Foundation has 5 or 6 curriculum platforms that they recommend and in fact donate and provide grants for school systems to use. And these books all have that sort of, are highly political in nature. And so it seems to come, 1, from the federal government, but 2, from companies or, you know, specifically big tech companies. I hate to say that, but they have a hand in education now.
Yeah, I think especially the Gates Foundation, they just pretty much messed up America's education system.
Very much so.
Yeah, they spend over $1 billion. But they really messed things up.
Yes.
Right. Like Zuckerberg kind of is new to me, so I don't know. I mean, I don't have much knowledge about them, but they are definitely a big player because they have money, right? And then you have other foundations, all kinds of foundations that they can.
Yes.
And now, like here, Indiana, the school board is supposed to be the people. I mean, the school board members are supposed to be people who is taking care of the curriculum. Is that the same in Rhode Island?
Well, in 2019, the Commissioner of Education was granted full power over curriculum in the state of Rhode Island.
Oh.
At the time, we thought, oh, great, we have a commissioner that is going to streamline our curriculum across the state. What's not to like about that? We had no idea that it would be used in this authoritarian manner to overthrow our curriculum and bring in this sort of very harmful, and in many cases historically inaccurate, politically charged and sexually charged curriculum.
Yeah, so, and also like the article you share at the Legal Insurrection, I'll put a link on that when I published this interview. I think people need to know about it. And I was shocked to read that they took away books about Holocaust.
Yes.
And also the reason they gave, it's just like, I just shocked.
Well, you know, there is a thread of, I wouldn't say a thread, it's quite significant actually. Anti-Semitism is on the rise.
Oh, wow.
And anti-Semitism, Christianity is under assault.
Yeah.
And yes, and so the Holocaust books were removed. Some books remain, and some teachers may contend that they actually teach the Holocaust. I know at the high school level, they teach some of the classics, but the thing to consider is these classics, as they are taught at the high school level, are framed to suit this left-wing political agenda. So they're not taught anymore from the perspective of the Jewish experience or a person who experiences the Holocaust. They're really taught to enhance and to frame the sort of narrative that America is bad and Western ideals are bad. And in the case of the Holocaust, white supremacy caused the Holocaust, and white supremacy was the reason so many people, not just Jews, but the contention is that the Holocaust was really a racist event, which it was, but it was primarily directed towards Jews. And now that is being sort of reframed and retold to fit that ultra left agenda that everybody and everything is racist.
Right. I mean, it's just not, is that last week, Woody Goldberg was making that crazy comment about, Holocaust is not about, it's not racist. It's very between like two people of both Jews and the Germans are all white people. So everything is about white supremacy. So it's not, an accident. It is something, there is narrative has been there. I mean, she just kind of bought that narrative.
She's not very bright. In fact, I would go as far to say she's stupid.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, she is. She has a lot of power and very little intelligence.
Right.
And she is really doing the African American community a disservice. She's so stupid. She's allowing herself to be a pawn, a useful idiot, as they say, and quite frankly, an embarrassment.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, there are so many people on the left that they are playing this useful idiots role because they did not realize that what's behind it is actually Marxism, is communism.
Correct.
And eventually, communism will devour them, even though they were useful at the beginning. But I mean, I grew up in China, so I understand how the communist works.
You would know better than any of us.
Yeah, they are very good at to divide people, then have people to fight against each other, and then they will once both sides got exhausted, and then they can take over. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah, so it's a more than 100-year-old strategy, but unfortunately, I mean, we see that a lot of people on the left, they kind of they fall into that that trick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some people really feel that they are, the Joan of Arc of, especially these sort of ultra elitist whites that seem to have embraced the plight and horrors that were inflicted upon slaves in this country. That really is, astounding. But in order for this sort of breakdown or dismantling of our culture and society, you have to have some sort of buy-in. You have to have some sort of story that people believe in order to fight for, to create the division. We have a great country. People are desperate to come to the United States. There is no reason to create a revolution or civil war. So the situation has to be created for people so people can carry the torch and create this divide and create the social strife. You're exactly right. It's exactly what was done, in the communist revolution in China and in the Rwandan crisis and in the Second World War. The Rwandan genocide, the Second World War towards the Jews, what happened to the Armenians and Turks, the same sort of thing. It's out of the playbook.
It is.
We're not stupid here in America.
No. Yeah. And one thing actually also alarming is that in your article, you talk about your students, there are a lot of them are not pledge allegiance to the flag.
Yeah.
And that is really, I think we need to wake up American people and parents especially, that those people are trying to start a revolution. They are really, in the past, they are considered traitors of this country. And the thing is, they had made it so clear, right? They made it clear they are not going to say the pledge to the flag. They are not going to sing our anthem. And somehow we just let them. I think it's about time, really, American people needs to wake up. We do have talk about like insurrection, right? Talking about riots, talking about all that. We do have some people doing that just in our education system. They are trying to like you said earlier, they're trying to groom the students into red guards, just like what happened in China. I mean, trying to use their youth and ignorance and also their energy and trying to bring a revolution here.
Yes, they are. They're doing it, and I'm seeing it. There are fewer and fewer children that stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I asked a couple of kids the other day why they're not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, and they looked at me with these complete, like, nothing disrespectful. They really, truly don't understand what even the pledge means, what the words mean anymore. They actually don't even bother. They don't flinch. It's not even a form of revolt or protest anymore. It's just, there's no respect or awareness or appreciation for those words, not one bit.
Right. And also, I mean, just like you said in your article, you don't blame them. I don't blame the kids either, because that's what been indoctrinated, right? When you hear the narrative that all the white people are bad and you know, the Western civilization is evil. And so, and I think you also mentioned that most of your students are non-white, right?
Yes, they're non-white, right?
So it's, I mean, that's the natural consequence, right? That's a logical consequence when they hear those things, and especially if they are from like a lower class, you know, poor families, then that narrative will build a bitterness, the resentment in them, and that will become such a destructive force.
Yes, sadly.
Yeah.
Sadly, the community where I teach, the kids are being used. They're being used and they're being propped up as political weapons by the teachers union, by the Rhode Island Department of Education, by political activists. You know, it's really child abuse.
Right.
To try to indoctrinate children and to get them to sway their opinion about their country, about their belief system, about their religion. That is child abuse. Children will believe whatever you say. If you're a teacher and you say, oh, pigs fly, then they might look at you and think, is she telling the truth? They're young people, their brains are developing.
Right.
They're impressionable.
Right.
And the high school level, they want to do well. The kids want to contribute in some way. So what better way than to make their activist teacher happy when that teacher says, protest and don't stand for the pledge, you know, go out and, you know, riot or go do something, you know, bend a knee or whatever. It's really, really terrible. I've never seen anything like it. We should be political neutral zones in the school.
Right.
You know, there's no place for this.
No, I mean, and so are there teachers who told the students not to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance? Was that how they, okay.
Yes, that's where they're getting it from.
Wow.
And of course, then you have teachers who are just embarrassed because they'll hear the pledge because they have to legally recite the pledge. And some kids just feel embarrassed now. They don't want to stand up because if you're in a classroom with 25 kids and 15 of them are sitting down because they've already been groomed and told not to stand, now you have the other 10 feeling like, oh, I better not stand. And so they just don't, you know, they don't stand because they don't want to be singled out in any way. And the same with educators. These people, this mob mentality is truly a destructive force, and they know it too. And really, I think though, I'm quite, you know, happy to see that there are more teachers, more parents, and more public awareness. I think on both parties, in both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and amongst independence. I think, quite frankly, the tide is turning, and I'm seeing more support and more people becoming vocal, as time passes.
Right.
Because we're realizing now the harm that is being done to children. I have a friend who is a pediatrician, and she was saying she has never seen so many cases of anxiety, kids who are so confused about all of the, shaming that is going on, the gender shaming, the gender confusion with these ridiculous pronouns, this new vocabulary that they're introducing. All of it is just ridiculous. I mean, we're adults and we think it's stupid, but young people are just, confused by this.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And especially like they hear something different in their homes, then they come to school and they hear something different. It's really,
Yes.
And I know actually a parent here living here, and she's white, and her adopted daughter is Black. And so one day her daughter came back home and said she's afraid of policemen. I mean, she never had any bad experience with policemen, right?
Right.
But she heard that from school, and well, maybe she read a book about it. So it's just like they are just causing a lot of anxiety and causing a lot of conflict.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think they are, like you said, they definitely the anti-Semitic, this ideology, this whatever, this narrative, and also they are anti-Asian because Asians, we are actually kind of, in a way, we are in their way because they couldn't. I mean, if Asians doing so good, so our system, our it's very hard to say that America is racist, but that's their narrative, right? So so instead of changing it, they just basically put us Asians into the category of white. So
how convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. So
yeah, well, I think that they try to kind of create this hysteria that there was somehow racism towards Asians in this country or hostility towards Asians, but that is simply not the case. Right. And I think, they tried, you saw in the media, oh my goodness, these Asians are being attacked by white supremacists on the street. Well, in fact, most crimes towards Asians are really happening, from non-white people. Yeah. That is where the majority of the crimes are being committed. Right. And that is a simple fact.
Yeah, it is, but they don't care because they have agenda.
True.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, if you look at the critical race theory, I think that's is behind all of that. It's really a new version of Marxism. Is basically because if you look at their tenet, they have I think 5 tenets. One of that is that they don't believe in rationalism, right? And so that means you cannot argue, you cannot reason with them, and they just believe in storytelling. Like by telling a story, that makes that true, right? And so they talk about their shared experience, and that is very hard to, to counter. I mean, if they say they had that experience,
right? Well, right, spirit murdering, for example. How do you argue with that? I mean, these people make these words up. They make these terms up. They're crazy. Right. They need some help. You know what I mean? They need like some assistance. And as far as the the whole narrative that is being spun, well, you can say whatever you want about American history and the Revolutionary War. Right. The very fact of the matter, the Revolutionary War was fought in the name of democracy to create an individual spirit, an individual democratic spirit that is alive and well in this country. So they are, Nicole, whoever, I can't think of the author of the 1619 Project. Nicole, I think I'm just drawing a blank for a second, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about, 1619 Project. She can say all she wants that the Revolutionary War was a war over slavery. It simply was not,
No.
You can try to steal American history. You can try to retell it. You can try to erase the Holocaust, but it's not going to work. At the end of the day, we don't have a history in this country, or even in Canada or North America or Western civilization, is not the same as a culture that is used to being dominated, or a country where revolutions or oppression really truly is a dominant theme. We are Americans, and we are not going to let them simply overtake our schools and continue to abuse our children and to steal our history. We're simply not going to sit back and allow that to happen. So 1619 Project stamped, they can, eventually that's all going to get wiped out and put in a garbage heap where it belongs.
Yeah, one thing I still haven't figured out yet is how come the administrations and the school board members like let it happen. Like I mean here I live in a very conservative school district, and the Ibram Kendi's book How to Be an Anti-Racist was a recommended reading in the school's website.
I'm laughing.
Yeah, I know. I spent a week just kind of go through that, and I wrote an article about it, kind of to give my counter argument. But the thing is, that book is just really, a person's opinion, right? And it's
not a bright one.
Exactly, and full of like anti-Western culture, anti-capitalism. I mean, the whole thing is really come down to is a propaganda, piece.
Right.
But I don't know if any school administrators ever read it, or any school board members ever read it. I don't know what happened there, because if they read it, they should come down to this is ridiculous. And then you have so many school board corporations actually paid him a lot of money just to, lecture the teachers.
Yes, so it's called bribery. They're given brownie points by the state board, or they're held hostage by funds. Now the superintendents of these boards can go and talk to, in our case, there's a superintendent organization, and they meet with the Rhode Island Department of Education once a month or every 2 weeks. And don't you know that they want to get that pat in the back? They want to get the award. They want to be the school that flies below the radar. So they're going to do the bidding of the state Board of Education. 1, because they want the money. 2, because they want the federal funds. 3, because they just want to fly below the radar, and they're hoping it passes. And they're willing to throw students under the bus in the process. They're scoundrels, really. And the good superintendents that speak out against all of this, they get fired, or they're made examples of, or the school funding is held back. I mean, there's really, this is, I liken it to a gang, or some sort of like education cartel, where you have these like bullies stealing and using tax dollars to hold school boards hostage. Teachers are being held hostage, and school committee members are being hostage. Now, peppered in with some of the decent teachers and decent school committee members are these radical left-wing nuts who are towing the political line and kind of intimidating these superintendents and school boards into submission. Some are close to retirement, and they just want to get out, and I'm sure they're thinking, let's just hope this passes. And some are actually invested in this ideology. They actually believe in it. and believe that they're saving the world in some capacity.
Wow.
And some are just plain old mentally ill.
Right.
That's all you
Well,
can, I mean,
yeah.
you know.
Well, I mean, I know some people basically saying the whole CRT thing is really a new religion, because the people who believe them have this religious zeal. They are truly trying to, you know, in their word, I mean, they call it about dismantling racism, but if you look at the book written by Kendi, that means is dismantle the whole political system, is dismantle the whole country, and that's just crazy. But
that makes me laugh. He is actually just so unbelievably, you know, uninteresting, really, as a human being. Let's start with that. Somebody else must have really contributed a great deal to help him write that book, because I've heard him speak and he can barely utter a sentence and make any sense at all.
Really?
And for him to suggest the very society that he has, that actually contributed to his success, he wants to dismantle that. Well, that is just stupid, even more stupid than some of the other things that we've spoken about. I mean, really, you know, I can see an oppressive society wanting to dismantle and start over, you know, from the ground up. But a community or culture that is actually, that you have benefited from,
right?
Now you're trying to suggest that, you know, community somehow oppressed you. Meanwhile, he's a gazillionaire, you know, stealing all kinds of tax dollars to do talks at schools to convince children that this country is inherently bad. He is shameful.
Oh, wow.
That can
so
be.
You said you heard him talk. Is was that arranged by your school district?
No, because I wouldn't ever go hear him if I didn't have to. I happen to be on a panel, Tamara Hall show. He was on the same panel, and I kept waiting for him to say something that was going to enlighten me, that was going to, you know, teach me something that maybe I myself, you know, didn't know about American culture or about myself even. And there was nothing that came out of his mouth. First of all, he was reading entirely from a prompt, or it seemed so anyway. His questions were scripted. You could see that.
Oh, wow.
And nothing he said, you could see, rang true in his own mind. It seemed to me like he couldn't even develop his argument, his anti-racist argument, to suggest that the only way to fight racism is with racism.
Right.
I'm sorry, but you know, you're listening to this as an educated woman. I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking, this man is so dangerous on so many levels because he is stupid and because he appeals to the masses with his stupidity. That is dangerous to me and worrisome. And yet there he is.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah. And so basically, you think he's a fake, like somebody is there to kind of like well, how the music industry is making a star, right? So you have people working and promoting and the scripting and all that. Do you think he has people behind him doing all that?
Just listening to him, I can't imagine that this is a scholarly individual who actually, you know, he can't seem to even put together a sentence, a coherent sentence, you know, that makes sense. You can't argue with this. There's no argumentation. There's no reasonable discourse behind his words. It's all hyperbole. It's all fluff. It's feelings and thoughts and, oh, I think this and that. It's all meant to ignite and to create emotions, to stir up emotions and to get people fired up for no reason at all, no justifiable reason that can be explained away in any kind of a reasonable argument at all.
Yeah. When I was reading his book, and I thought about Mein Kampf.
Mein Kampf, yeah.
Mein Kampf. Yeah, I thought about that. It's pretty much the same style,
You're right.
Part of the biography, part of the political opinions, and there is not that's not a scholarly book.
No. And I see the connection you're making.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. It's really a lot of just emotions, it's kind of like a song. You can listen to a song and feel the emotions in that moment, but you might not quite understand the metaphors and the words. It's the same thing. He's peddling an emotion that is not even a real and valid emotion. He's a snake oil salesman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people are buying it. Or some people anyway. I don't think everybody is. I think
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is sometimes like we just had a couple of weeks ago. I went to give a testimony in Indiana State House, and there was some librarians and they also gave their testimony. They said the way they select books is based on they have some kind of community, right? Is that bestseller books and all that. But if you base on that, then his book definitely is one of the bestsellers, even though the book is really not it really doesn't have, it's first of all, it's not scholarly, and second of all, it's not really that's something like, the reason I read that is because otherwise I wouldn't read that book. It's because that was a recommended book. I want to know what's going on, right?
Yes. You're desperately reading each page, waiting for something, reasonable to be said or to be, educated in some way, and it just doesn't happen. It's an advertisement.
Right. And his argument, first of all his cases, examples he cited, those are before the civil rights movement. It was like 100 years ago, something in the 18 something or something in the early 19s. Those definitely we had that right back then. Blacks cannot vote, and we know that. But we have come a long ways after the civil revolution. Civil rights movement and all that, but he's just like, it's crazy. It's all those policies he cited, those are already the past, and so anything recent he couldn't give an example. But his argument is, look at how many blacks, what's percentage of blacks in prison, right? What's the percentage of white in prison? So there is more blacks in prison, so therefore there is a racism. And that's his argument, right? Anything he just and the whites, the blacks, their life expectancy is lower than the white, so therefore there is racism. That's all his argument is. Look at, he wants to, like, everything has to be perfectly proportional to the population, but he didn't mention about first of all what's percentage of African Americans in like sports. He didn't use that, right?
Oh no. Why would he?
What's percentage of African American abortion? He didn't cite that. If there is anything racism, that could be a good example, right? Looking at the abortions, definitely African American, they quite a big proportion of that, out of proportion.
Interesting. I never thought about that myself, but yeah.
But he won't use that one because that was against his narrative, and now it's going to challenge Planned Parenthood, even though Planned Parenthood was a racist organization, and the
Yeah.
founder was a racist. But
well, you'll notice he'll never do an interview like this. He'll never have a real candid conversation. It's always scripted. It's always, questions are always vetted, that kind of thing.
Okay.
He's part of the machine that is spinning this divisive narrative in the hopes of, creating and generating complete and utter breakdown in our society and potentially a civil war, a revolution of some sort. He's prop. He's being used. The same with the author of the 1619 Project. They're being used.
Right. And also it's kind of scary to see that we have like the New York Times, right, that is behind that project, 1619. It's just like, what's going on here? I mean, but I think based on what I hear, and I listen to Jordan Peterson a lot. I also listen to Barry Weiss. And if you hear from them, I mean, I think that really paint a scary picture, is that right now, the crazy people has taken over our higher education. They have taken over our media, right? They have taken over our many institutions. They have,
the crazy people. Well, I was trying to be polite by saying the mentally ill, but it's true. These people are nuts. I've never seen anything like this ever.
Right.
And when it's all like, if this were to roll out, play out, and we actually did have a civil war, none of us would benefit. Not Black, not white, not brown, not Asian. The only people who would benefit are those, sort of elitist, Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg's of the world. They would do just fine. We are all just pawns being moved around on this chessboard right now. And at some point in time, I really do believe in the American spirit and the strength of the American people, and also, the strength of the African-American community and the Asian community, that we will all come together to fight this tyranny together, which I actually think is starting to happen. We're not seeing it so much in high schools or certain, younger populations, but the young people will also come around, things go in phases. I really do believe in the human spirit. And I think that this country embodies, it is the pinnacle of freedom and light. It doesn't mean everything in our history is perfect or that everything we have done has been perfect. But I see that this country is the last frontier. If America falls, the world will be unrecognizable.
Exactly.
And I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I feel in my heart that we've come to the brink of disaster before. And this will be one of those moments that we will look at in the history books in years to come. We'll look back and say, wow, this was a crazy time in American history.
Right. And I do agree with you that the tide is turning. And I see a lot of people are speaking up. And I see a lot of Chinese Americans speaking up, because we experienced cultural revolution and we don't want that to happen here. And you see a lot of people who came from former Soviet Union, from Cuba, and those people are speaking up because we know, right? Once you had that experience, then you know what's coming.
Correct.
And then
I agree. Yep. My painters, I just had my interior of my house painted, and it just so happened that the painting crew was from the former Soviet Union.
Oh, wow.
And they were saying, we were having a conversation, and they said to me, we were having a talk, owner of the company said to me that he is recognizing similar things happening now in the United States that happened before the USSR broke up. And he was forced to leave and come to the United States to live, and he brought his whole family here. And he's terribly afraid of what he is seeing.
Yeah.
So I think that when you start to have conversations with people on the street, your neighbors and painters and everybody, like people you don't even know, are coming together and reaching out, and that this problem is falling apart, that this scenario, this narrative that they have worked so hard over the past several years to roll out in its full entirety last year, it's coming apart at the seams.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to really talking with you. I really learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate that your courage, and to stand up, because I have been, I'm still a teacher. I've been in the system, and I know that what the administrator can do to you if they if they don't like you. Yeah. So
that's okay. I'm tough. I always say they're messing with the wrong blonde.
Exactly. They're messing with the wrong blonde. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun talking to you.
Same here. Okay. All right.
We'll talk soon again, I hope.
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.